The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A proclamation from the Holy Gospel according to St. Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus said to his disciples, "Be sure of this. If the master of the house had known the hour when the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must prepare, for at an hour you do not expect, the Son of Man will come." Then Peter said, "Lord, is this parable meant for us or for everyone?" And the Lord replied, "Who then is the faithful and prudent steward, whom the master will put in charge of his servants, to distribute the food allowance at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master on arriving finds doing so. Truly I say to you, he will put him in charge of all his property. But if that servant says to himself, 'My master is delayed in coming,' and begins to beat the male servants and the maid servants, and to eat and drink and be drunk, then the servant's master will come on an unexpected date and an hour unknown, and will punish that servant severely, and assign him a place with the unfaithful. That servant who knew his master's will, but did not make preparations, nor act in accord with his will, shall be beaten severely. And the servant who was ignorant of his master's will, but acted in a way deserving of a severe beating, shall be beaten only lightly. Much will be required of a person entrusted with much, and still more will be demanded of a person entrusted with more." The Gospel of our salvation.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Good evening, my dear brothers and sisters. Among the news that are in the headlines lately are three very distinct news. No? First is the endless talk about port congestion in the port of Manila. Lately, there is nothing inside the newspaper that does not belong also to the Building 2 of the Makati City Hall, no? About the Vice President. And there was a very funny news about the congestion of our roads, especially EDSA. Why? Because according to MMDA, one of the contributory factors while there is a heavy traffic jam in EDSA is, according to them, because of unruly drivers, especially our public utility drivers, the buses and the jeepneys. And there was a commentary that actually, outside the Philippines, one of the best drivers in the world are actually Filipinos. No? If you go to the Middle East and also some in North America, in the United States, and also Canada, they like Filipino drivers because according to them, Filipino drivers are one of those who follow good etiquette in driving. Hindi ba po ba napakagulo nun? Bakit namumblema tayo sa EDSA sa mga drivers natin? Dahil sabi ng MMDA, hindi daw hindi daw marunong ang mga driver nating sumunod sa mga batas trapiko, habang sinasabi naman ng mga tao sa labas ng Pilipinas, ang pinakamagaling magmaneho daw ay ang mga Pilipino. Tapos, sabi po nung isang komentarista, one commentary said that it is because of this simple rule of thumb. Here in the Philippines, drivers expect to get away with their infractions. That is why they do not follow the rules of the road. Outside the Philippines, they are afraid that they will be caught. No? That is why they follow the rules, no? Or the etiquette of the road. Ito daw po yung simpleng sagot dyan. Kasi sa labas ng Pilipinas, takot ang mga Pilipino. Sa loob ng Pilipinas, no, alam nila makakalusot. This is actually what our gospel reminds us. No? And I guess it is also a calling for all of us, no, inside the church. It is a reminder of this one basic fact. In the end of our lives, my dear friends, all of us will be answerable to God. All of us will be answerable to God. We must not forget this. Sa bandang huli, tayong lahat haharap sa Diyos. No? And so, it is in this light that we must always be accountable for the things that are entrusted to us. This is why St. Paul, in our first reading, says to us that this challenge that was entrusted to him is actually something he does not take lightly. Kung napansin niyo po, si San Pablo, pwede naman niyang sabihin, after writing to a few churches, after preaching about the good news, he could have said to himself, I have done my part. Ginawa ko na yung parte ko. I have already actually joined in the evangelization that God has entrusted to me. But St. Paul actually spent all his life, all his life, up to the end, still writing to the churches of the different parts of Asia Minor so that he will proclaim the good news. I guess this is why our theme for this year, laity in joyful and active evangelization. No? You will know that a person is joyful not only because he has a smile in his face. You would see this even with Pope John Paul II. When he was actually winding up his pontificate, when he was old, no? You could no longer see the smile in the Polish face. No? Yung pong maamong mukha niya na may smile. Wala na yon dahil sa Parkinson's. No? We would remember him. Kung naaalala niyo po, yung mga last moments niya. When he would try to speak, actually saliva would fall from his mouth already. And he could no longer speak. No? There was already pain when he tried to speak his last Angelus, nung pong hindi na siya makapagsalita. Tapos ang ginawa na lang niya, he waved his hand. No? But you could already see from his face that there was pain. Dahil po, nakikita nyo na medyo nadidistort na yung mukha niya. No? Pero po, up to the last moments of his life, I think he was joyful. Why? Because he loved what he was doing. He loved what he was doing. That was also the secret of the people of long days ago. Di ba po? Nung mga unang panahon, yung mga tao, when they picked or choose their career in life, their courses, it was something that they consider. What was the thing that make them happy? No? Yun po yung unang consideration noong una. Iniisip nila, ano ba yung gusto mong ginagawa? Yun yung kunin mong kurso. Ngayon po kasi, the first consideration that people think of when they go to college, no? Ano po ba yung pinakamalaki ang sweldo? Ano ba yung pwede akong lumabas ng Pilipinas at mag-abroad? Kaya nga po, kung minsan, kahit takot sa dugo, nagna-nurse. Nung uso ang nursing. No po. Ngayon, kahit na hindi marunong humawak ng kutsilyo, pumapasok sa mga culinary arts. Why? Because the consideration is yung pinakamalakiyang sweldo. And sometimes, the sad thing is, they do not find happiness in what they do. That is why, nung unang panahon po, tignan ninyo, even when teaching was poorly, or teachers were given poor salaries, di ba po? Nung unang panahon po, no, this was a little bit early on in our history. Yung mga teachers po, especially public school teachers, had a meager salary. Pero po nung unang panahon, they had time to go to their students. Pag medyo nag-a-absent na yung estudyante nila, pag bumabagsak na ang estudyante nila, they will go to their homes. Teachers really cared during those times. Actually, up to now, the teachers cares. Pero po, kung napapansin niyo, they could do this even with small salaries because they were happy with what they were doing. It was a vocation. It was not just their bread and butter. It was not just a career. People saw their career, they saw their courses. They saw their jobs as vocations. This is, I guess, what is also what we need to see as we join the church's call for evangelization. That it is a call for all of us. That God calls us so that even in pain, even in hardships, we could be happy. This is the secret, I guess, of Pope John Paul in his life. The second thing that our gospel would remind us is this, that we are not only called to join in the evangelization, that we are to be accountable to God at the end of our lives, but that we are stewards, na pinagkatiwala lang po yan sa atin. That's why Pope John Paul, in his motto says, totus tuus, totally yours, all yours. Because in the end, what can we say which is truly ours? Nothing. Our gospel tells us that the master entrusted it to his steward. In the end, no, we are good stewards if we know that the things that we have, our talent, time, treasure, is not ours. It is God. Kaya po kung minsan, yung ibang mga tao, mahirap hikayating sumali sa kahit na anong bagay sa simbahan. Why? They will always find an excuse. Sasabihin nila, pag nagtatrabaho pa sila, pag-retired na ako. Pag nag-retire na sila, sasabihin nila, meron pa kasi akong apong binabantayan. Kailan ka pa? When will you really face up and step up and take the challenge of trying to volunteer yourselves to serve for God? It is the thing that reminds us that we are only stewards of this. And so, when God asks us, we must learn how to oblige. The prophet Job said it best when he said, "The Lord has given, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." May we learn that the things that we have are not owned by us. They were entrusted to us by God. So that when God asks us, we will learn how to give joyfully from our hearts. This is the secret of joy, my dear friends. And I guess it is also the secret of St. Jude. Even in hopeless cases, we will find joy if we know that we are accountable to God in the end. And we know that we are but stewards. We will be laymen and women, joyful in the task of evangelization, if we can show that we are joyful in serving not only ourselves, but also others.